Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Circle. Join the official Telegram channel of Rao's IAS Study Circle to stay updated and get all the materials on the Telegram. The link to the channel can be found in the description box. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading from a UPSC Civil Services examination perspective. Now today let us take up the important news which has appeared in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 19th August 2021. The news to be discussed has been displayed on your screen and timestamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. So on this note, let's start our today's discussion from our prelims and mains perspective. Now the date for prelims examination is approaching just around the corner, and if you are a serious contender, then Rao's IAS brings you the Pre-Pareekshan mock test. Now this is a free all India mock test which will be conducted from 20th to 22nd August 2021 and the results will be displayed on 23rd of August. Now in this all India mock test, you will be provided all India ranking. You will be given analysis of your performance to identify your own strong and weak areas. You will be also provided with comparative analysis with respect to other candidates, and there will also be a provision for live discussion of the questions. So if you have not registered yourself on the eLearn platform of Rao's IAS, then please go and register yourself on elearn.raoias.com. Now with respect to our weekly answer writing practice from DNS videos, the question for today's week is: the energy transition roadmap of India will help in ending energy poverty in India. Discuss. And this question needs to be answered within 150 words. Now to understand the topic, you can go through the DNS dated 18th December 2020, where the news discussed was with respect to One Nation, One Gas Grid, where investment related to gas infrastructure were discussed. So this becomes your practice question from DNS videos for this particular week. Now let's take our first article for discussion appearing on page number 6. The lead article highlights the significance of that there is no data answer. The government's consistent no data declarations on important issues are a critical part of larger political project. Now this article is written mostly from a political perspective, but from our examination point of view, let us understand this article from the aspect of adverse impact of data deniability by the state. Now we understand that in the modern world and democracies driven by technology, data management and analysis plays a key role in not only analyzing ground situation, but accordingly draft schemes and policy measures to address the needs of citizens, such as education, jobs, health, etc., reflects the state of governance and also accountability and responsibility on part of the government. So it is in this regard this article highlights the adverse impact of data deficit, or when government purposely alters data or hides data. So let us understand this article primarily from the perspective of adverse impact of data deniability by the state, and this topic can be covered as a part of GS paper 2 and also GS paper 4. Now under GS paper 2, this question can be asked with respect to issues relating to the development and management of a various social sector, including health, education, human resources, especially pertaining to the aspects of data management and analysis, and also functions and responsibilities of the union and states. Now question can also be framed under GS paper 4, particularly with respect to the aspect of probity in governance, as the syllabus specifically mentions about information sharing and transparency in government. So question in your mains examination can also be asked pertaining to the aspect of transparency pertaining to data driven governance. Now look at this particular statement: adverse impact of data deniability by the state. Now we can use this statement to form different kind of questions which can be asked in your mains examination. For example, what are the various adverse impacts of data deniability by the state? Or how does data deniability by the states impacts governance and rights of citizens? Further, question can also be framed, for example, like comment or discuss or elucidate or illustrate on adverse impact of data deniability by the state. So in perspective of this article, let us understand these various impacts of data deniability by the state or by the government. So the first adverse impact of data deniability by the state reflects in evasion of accountability by the government, and also addresses the evasion of responsibility by the government, especially regarding implementation of various policy measures and schemes. So this point leads to our second point, which is lack of reliable data or hiding of data by the government impacts policy making or policy measures, which overall impacts governance at ground level, and this overall impacts the lives of citizens. For example, with respect to health, if it is not clear as to how many citizens of the country are infected of a particular disease, then it would be difficult to take proper health measures, and it will also be difficult to ascertain the number of vaccines needed to cure the problem. Now, another example can be said to be subsidy schemes or welfare schemes provided by the government for below poverty line citizens or BPL citizens. Now, here measuring poverty itself becomes ambiguous. So, based on this ambiguous data, it becomes difficult for the government to find out exact number of people needing those welfare schemes. Now, the third aspect of data deniability is that it impacts electoral outcomes, because these false data helps in creating a false political narratives for the success stories of the incumbent government. So overall, such false data impacts the decision making for citizens during elections, and therefore it also impacts electoral outcomes. Now, since the government understands the political gain of such deniability of data, hence it also results in power concentration. Now, this fourth aspect of power concentration can also be understood from the perspective of creation of power asymmetry between state and its citizens. Now, the concept of power asymmetry must be understood in the backdrop of data sharing. Now, the state wants to extract as much data as possible from the citizens of India. However, in return, the state does not want to provide enough data to its citizens. So, this asymmetry of power, especially from the perspective of data sharing, makes citizens vulnerable. Further, deniability of data or altering these data also affects or impacts freedom of expression of citizens of India, as the freedom of expression is not only a constitutional right under Article 19(1)(a), but has also been provided through RTI and is also a part of UDHR or Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So data deniability impacts one of the basic human rights of freedom of expression of citizens. So this becomes the sixth point. And the seventh point becomes that lack of data on any given subject prevents insightful debates by scholars and experts of that particular subject. Thus, overall, these can be said to be some of the adverse impact of data deniability by the state. So, if such a question is asked on the adverse impact of data deniability by state, then in the conclusion we can say that there is a need for data-driven governance to ensure governance at ground level, along with realization of important human rights, including fundamental rights of citizens. Further, the aspect of data governance mechanism should also be incorporated within the provision of Right to Information Act. So these aspects can be highlighted in your conclusion if a question is asked based on adverse impact of data deniability by the state. Thus, this article becomes important from the perspective of GS paper 2 as well as GS paper 4. With this understanding of adverse impact of data deniability by the state, let's move on to our next article for discussion. The next article of discussion appears on page number 7. It says, "The police we need. India requires a police force that is responsive and respected and not one that is feared, as is the case today." Now, the aspects highlighted about Indian police force in present circumstances has also been raised as an alarm by the Chief Justice of India. As you can see, he had stated that threat to human rights is highest in police stations. Chief Justice of India also flagged issues of human rights and dignity, saying that these are sacrosanct rights. So the CJI has highlighted various kinds of police torture and also custodial deaths, thereby highlighting the issue of human rights abuse. So this particular news with respect to the police we need can be seen from the perspective of governance under GS paper 2 and also ethics and professionalism under GS paper 4. As you go through the syllabus of GS paper 4, you will find out that there are various issues on which questions can also be framed by UPSC, especially regarding the bad behavior of police. As you can see, it highlights about attitude, and also influence and relation with thought and behavior, moral and political attitudes, social influence and persuasion. It then mentions about aptitude and foundational values for civil service, integrity, impartiality, non-partisanship, objectivity, dedication to public service, empathy, tolerance and compassion towards weaker sections, and also public civil services values and ethics in public administration. Whereas under GS paper 2, questions can be asked with respect to important aspects of governance, transparency and accountability of police functioning, and also functions and responsibilities of states, as police forms part of state list. So in this article, let us understand about the governance needs and also the need for ethics and professionalism in functioning of police force in India. Now, the following kinds of violations by the police can be said to be violation of human rights of citizens of India. These pertains to non-registration of FIR by the police, as there are a number of times when police are reluctant or do not want to register an FIR. Because if they register an FIR, then they have to investigate the case and also file a charge sheet, which will then be subject to judicial scrutiny. So, police at times does not want to register FIR. The next point is misuse of power of arrest, even without warrant at times, because citizens are not aware about their rights. Then there is a misuse of power of police to order to shoot to kill. Now, this is one of the grave misuse of powers given to the police as per the criminal laws. The next misuse of powers with respect to human rights violation are torture during police custody, which at times leads to custodial deaths, as what happened in Tamil Nadu last year. And also there are various cases of custodial rape and sexual harassment of women in police custody. So there is another aspect of gender sensitiveness which must be taken care into by the police officers of India. Now, apart from these human rights violations, this article has also highlighted about various kinds of corruption and greed in which police officers are involved. And there are also cases of allegations of sexual harassment on police officers. So all these reflects the sorry state of affairs with respect to the functioning of police in India. And it is because of this the Chief Justice of India has alarmed about the human rights violation, especially during police custody. So the question which arises is that what should be the remedy in order to reform the functioning of the police? So in this regard, first and foremost is the need for attitudinal change among police officers, as they need to shed the colonial mindset in which the police laws or the police manuals have been drafted. The next aspect is improving service conditions for police personnel. Now this also includes reducing the work hours of police and also providing them weekly off, along with the need for better pay scales, especially for lower police officers. The next aspect is regarding cultural or behavioral change among police functioning, and here they need to shed colonial mindset, especially that of extracting information through torture, and the police force must rely more on forensic science and other scientific abilities like DNA, brain mapping, etc. to extract information. The next aspect of remedy includes institutional arrangements which needs to be set up at police station at ground level. So there is a need to set up human rights protection cell in each police station. There is a need to establish monitoring cells at police headquarters, and also there is a need to set up district human rights authorities which shall work in coordination with the state human rights authorities. Now, apart from these institutional measures, there is also need to install CCTV cameras in each police station in India. And such CCTV cameras must be connected and coordinated through central control room at SP office. And lastly, there is a need to improve professionalism in the functioning of police. Thus, cultural measures along with institutional measures will help to reduce cases of human rights violation done by police officers. Now let's understand this concept of improving professionalism among police, especially from the perspective of GS paper 4. Because so far we have understood this particular topic from the perspective of GS paper 2, especially regarding remedying the need to improve police functioning to reduce human rights violation in India as highlighted by the Chief Justice of India. Now regarding the aspect of ethics and professionalism, Let us understand as to the steps needed to improve professionalism, especially among police recruits. So it says that professionalism and skill denote perfection of a person in his particular field, extremely competent in a job, or a piece of work produced with competence. So it says that proficiency refers to competency to do a job, and proficiency in every field, whether government or private, is necessary. Thus, professionalism is mandatory whether a person is employed in government service or a person is employed in private service. It further says that professionalism embodies normal values, technical knowledge, intellectual as well as professional competence. So these are the four important parameters of professionalism. These are normal values, technical knowledge, intellectual and professional competence. Thus, professionalism in a job is important or necessary to bring qualitative changes and implementing social responsibilities in the context of human rights. So again, two aspects becomes important with respect to embodiment of professionalism. These are bringing qualitative change and implementing social values. So all these aspects cumulatively becomes important from the perspective of professionalism and skill with respect to any job, either that job is a government service or that job is in private service. So based on this understanding of professionalism, even the police functionaries must have professionalism and skill in their job, which includes normal values, technical knowledge about their field, intellectual and professional competence, as these values or qualities helps in bringing qualitative change and also implementing social values from the perspective of human rights. So now the question becomes that how to inculcate the aspect of professionalism and skill in the freshly recruited police officers. So this can be done by improving professionalism right from the start through exposure to special education during service based on needs and professional demands. Further, there is also need for qualitative recruitment, and the old methods of recruitment should not be followed, as new methods of qualitative recruitment will judge professionalism of a candidate apart from other necessary skills which will be needed for a person to become police officer. It further says that these professionalism in a police candidate or in a police recruit who is recruited through scientific methods will help in inculcating community driven approach in such police officers, and this will overall help in improving the existing police community relationship or reducing the gap between police and society. Now it further mentions about reforming behavior during training of police recruits. So it mentions about post induction transformation and modification. Now it says that training plays an important role in the evolution, modification, transformation and stabilization of skills, and it is here where efforts should be made to reform the behavior, attitude and responses of police probationers. So the skills which are acquired during training by these police probationers must also be continuously monitored and evaluated when these probationers are placed in field or they are posted in field. And even when they are placed in fields, there must be a close and critical scrutiny of such officers in order to note professional deficiency, if any, especially in handling sensitive cases. And such professional deficiency must become a part of their official record. Further, there is a need to provide in-service training from time to time with respect to updation of skills or updating skills of police officers, including technology and professional behavior. Next, the police officers must also be updated about the recent or latest development and research in the fields of forensic science and criminology, not only in India but also around the world, as it will keep them updated in their skills of investigation as a police officer. Further, there is also a need to replace old police act because the old police manuals helps the police officers in maintaining or continuing the colonial mindset. And because of this colonial mindset, there are cases of increased human rights violation. Now there is also need to separate law police from that of order police. Basically, detection of crime and maintenance of law and order should be separated with respect to the functioning of police. Then there is a need to maintain strict observation of code of conduct for police rules, along with cultural revolution. Now, this aspect of cultural revolution was suggested by one of the retired IPS officer. Now, this cultural revolution pertains to giving up corruption, giving up third degree torture, and unnecessary pride in being a police officer. Next, there is a need for effective functioning of Central Police Board in order to ensure professional transfer and postings without any political or corrupt motive. And lastly, the government must come up with a system of reward and punishment among police officials based on their professional behavior. So, professional behavior must be made a key parameter for the judgment of their performance while in duty. Now, I have taken this particular extract from the Indian Police Journal. It says that what are the important reasons of declining professionalism in our country with respect to police officers. So it mentions about some of the important or rather key aspects. Let's go through them very quickly. For quick promotions and good postings, policemen have contacts with politician and other influential person. So again, the aspect of political transfers is highlighted here. Now the problem with respect to political transfer is that it may lead to dysfunctional work patterns. Further, it mentions about political support to the delinquent police officers, politicized transfers in the department, decline in values and moral fibers of average policemen because of socio-political and economic reasons. Further, lack of downward communication in department which overall affects better supervision and conduct of subordinates. Another problem highlighted is training is far away from the reality at field level. Next, nexus among criminals, politicians and police. Another reason of declining professionalism in police includes multiplicity of police functions because of changing socio-economic and political developments. Next problem is trade union tendencies in police forces, yellow journalism and inadequate support from media. Now, yellow journalism is a style of newspaper reporting which emphasizes on sensationalism over facts. So at times there are certain criminal cases which are over sensationalized, which overall discourages the morale of the police officers. It then mentions about inadequate application of science and modern technology in police work, ineffective and obsolete criminal justice system, strange hold of IAS over IPS, communication gap between police and public, and failure of superior officers to protect dedicated subordinate officers. So these are some of the points highlighted in this journal with respect to declining professionalism of police in India. Now, based on our discussion, this becomes your practice question for mains. So it says that recently, Chief Justice of India has exclaimed that threat to human rights is highest in police station. What values do you think are important for the police department? How can behavioral change be brought about in the police force? Now, this question needs to be addressed in 150 words. So from our discussion, we understand that this topic becomes important both from the perspective of governance under GS paper 2 and also from the perspective of ethics under GS paper 4. With this, let's move to our next article of discussion. Now the next news to be discussed appears on page number 10. It says, Center to boost oil palm farming. New plan to cut dependence on imports by increasing domestic production. Now it's interesting to note that India, despite being the 5th largest oilseed crop producing country in the world, India is also one of the largest importers of vegetable oil. So keeping these aspects in mind, the central government has come up with National Mission on Edible Oil for Oil Palm. Now this is a centrally sponsored scheme where the finance will be shared between center and states, and the special focus will be on northeastern region of India and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Now another point to be highlighted here is that area under oilseeds cultivation has been roughly around 14% of the agricultural area, and this 14% has remained almost stagnant. Another point to be understood here is that overall production of oilseeds has neither consistently increased nor consistently decreased in the last 10 years. Now the purpose of this mission is to improve productivity of edible oils including oil palm in India. Now, according to Indian Institute of Oil Palm and Research, as of now, oil palm is grown in India in 4 lakh hectares. However, this institute has mentioned that 20 lakh hectares of land can be used to grow oil palm in India, but as of now it is grown only in around 4 lakh hectares. So the whole idea is to improve productivity of oil palm so as to reduce the dependence on imports. Now with respect to oil palm, oil is extracted from fresh fruit bunches, as you can see in this particular picture. Now the problem with these fresh fruit bunches is that the prices of these fresh fruit bunches are volatile and are linked to international market price fluctuation. So because of the fluctuation or volatility in price of fresh fruit bunches of oil palm, farmers in India do not want to grow oil palm because of volatility of prices. So in order to counter this volatility, the central government through this particular scheme aims to ensure price assurance to the farmers, and through this scheme the center also wants to assist the farmers in buying plant inputs. So the central government through the National Mission on Edible Oils oil palm aims to provide price assurance to farmers and also help or provide assistance in buying plant inputs for oil palms, as both these steps will allow the farmers to grow oil palm in more areas of land. So this scheme aims to increase the area in which oil palm is grown from the present 4 lakh hectares to 6.5 lakh hectares by the year 2025-26. And in these 6.5 lakh hectares, it is expected that 11.2 lakh tons of palm oil will be extracted. So the question becomes that why this scheme is necessary. As you can see that the present status of oil palm in India, it is grown in around 3 lakh hectares. Now this is as per the data of 2019, whereby the production is 2 lakh tons of oil palm. And in this regard, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana are the largest producer for oil palm in India, whereas world's largest producers are Indonesia followed by Malaysia, as both these countries account for 85% of oil palm production. Now regarding growing of oil palm in India, there is a demand-supply mismatch because of greater imports of palm oil in India. So in this perspective, the National Edible Oil Mission for Oil Palm will ensure self-reliance in palm oil production, and increased production will also help to reduce import dependence. However, certain challenges still remains with respect to growing palm oil in India. These are environmental sustainability, deforestation, loss of biodiversity and water scarcity in Indian fields. Now regarding benefits of palm oil cultivation, higher yields will lead to higher income for farmers, as there is low land requirement for the production of oil palm, and it will also reduce import dependence for India. So overall, the benefit of this new scheme introduced by the central government can be said to be the following. It will help in increasing capital investment in the growing of oil palm in India. It will lead to more employment generation in the country. It will reduce import dependence for palm oil, and it will also help in increasing the income of farmers. Now other initiatives to boost oil seeds production in India includes National Food Security Mission Oil Seeds and Oil Palm, as it helps in distribution of quality seeds, improve technologies and also distribution of micronutrients. Government increases the import duties on vegetable oils because of higher imports. Government also provides increased minimum support price on various oil seeds. Government also provides guaranteed procurement through PM Asha. And the government also focuses on targeting rice fallow areas, that is, those areas on which rice have been grown in Kharif season, but for the Rabi season, those areas are fallow or nothing is grown on such field during the Rabi season. So in such season, when nothing is grown on the field, pulses and oil seeds can be grown. And the pulses and oil seeds can utilize the residual moisture which has been left because of rice plantation. As it says that once the rice is harvested, residual moisture left in the soil is sufficient to grow pulses and oil seeds. And it further says that introduction of pulses and oil seeds in rice fallows will not only increase production of pulses and oil seeds, but it will also lead to doubling of farmers' income. So these are also some of the other initiatives to boost oil seeds production in India. Thus, this topic of National Mission on Edible Oils and Oil Palm becomes important both from your prelims and mains perspective. In the prelims, question can be asked under the perspective of Indian economy, and in the mains, question can be asked under GS paper 3, especially pertaining to major crop and cropping patterns in India. issues pertaining to Indian economy, and issues relating to direct and indirect farm subsidies and minimum support prices, in this case for palm oils. So with this understanding, let's take up our next article. Now the next article to be taken up appears on page number 6. It says, keeping an eye on China's expanding nuclear stack. Even if there is contention about the scope and prospective size of Beijing's capabilities, India needs to be watchful. Now, multiple evidences have emerged recently to suggest that China is expanding its capacity to store and launch nuclear missiles. So, basically, China is expanding its nuclear capability. So, basically, two questions arises. Number one is that why now? And second is what is the threat to India? Now, it has been observed that for decades, nuclear weapons did not figure prominently in China's military planning, as China not only stayed out of the Cold War but also maintained a minimal deterrent. However, China was never building a massive stockpile of nuclear arsenals as what was being done by US and Russia during the Cold War period. However, the present expansion of nuclear capability by China is definitely indicating a shift in China's nuclear strategy. So we definitely see a shift in China's nuclear strategy. So the first question remains as to why now? Now the answer to this question lies in the following aspect. It says that growing disputes with Western countries over issues such as human rights, democratic values, rule of law, and following international norms. So, in case of first strike on China with respect to nuclear attack, and in order to survive such nuclear attack, China has been expanding its nuclear capabilities. Now, the third reason which becomes significant from Indian perspective is recent border issues with India. And it is here where this particular question becomes pertinent. The question is, highlight the threats faced by India amid China's expansion of its nuclear arsenals. So, growing of nuclear arsenals for China may pose significant problems for India, as India is in constant border dispute with China, and it is likely to have an impact on the ongoing boundary standoff between the two countries along eastern Ladakh. So, through fixed land-based nuclear capabilities, China can consolidate their gains made in Despang, Demchok, and Gogra hot springs, and also other areas of Galwan Valley along eastern Ladakh becomes vulnerable. Now, another area of concern is regarding maritime security. So, nuclear submarines may give China a leverage in expanding its footprint in the Indian Ocean, as India assumes Indian Ocean to be its sphere of dominance. Now, there is another threat of a two-front war, on one side posed by China and on the other side posed by Pakistan. So, any shift in nuclear strategy of China may lead to potential two-front nuclear war, and this may become problematic for India. Next, India's nuclear installations may become vulnerable to threat from Chinese nuclear attack. Now, Indian nuclear and conventional assets are already under threat from Chinese cyber attacks, and these are likely to increase. Now, another concern is that India is still a non-signatory of Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, that is NPT, and India do not enjoy the luxury of expanding its nuclear arsenal like China. Further, this may also negatively impact the prospect of India's membership in Nuclear Suppliers Group, which is important for India's energy security plans. Now, despite these threats, the strategic balance between China and India is unlikely to be altered any sooner because of the Chinese nuclear expansion. However, New Delhi would be wise to keep a close eye on its neighbor and work on enhancing its own strategic capabilities to counter any threat from China or from any of these threats. So these can be said to be some of the possible threats which may be faced by India with respect to shift in China's nuclear strategy. Now this article becomes important primarily from the perspective of security under GS paper 3. With this understanding, let's take up our last two articles. Now let's take up our next two news from Prelims perspective. Now this news highlights about the Wanchuwa festival, which is celebrated in Assam, and it relates with agriculture. Now the Wanchuwa festival of Assam is celebrated by the Tiwa tribesmen who are categorized as scheduled tribe within the state of Assam. The Tiwa tribesmen are also referred as Lalungs as per the colonial literature. Now, the Tiwa tribesmen are also categorized as Tiwa Hills and Tiwa Plains. And the Tiwa tribesmen are habituated or resides along the Karbi Anglong district of Assam. Now, as you can see in this picture, it mentions about fostering a custom Tiwa tribesmen performing traditional dance as they take part in the Wanchuwa festival, in which they pray for a bountiful harvest. And this festival is taking place in Karbi Anglong district of Assam. Now, if you see this particular map, this is the state of Assam and this is the district of Karbi Anglong. So, this particular news becomes important from the perspective of culture, as questions can be asked with respect to Wanchuwa festival and also with respect to the Tiwa tribesmen of Assam. The last news to be taken up from Prelims perspective appears on page number 10. It says that India-Vietnam navies hold joint exercise. Now, in this news, you need to know about the place where they held their joint exercise and also location of the particular area. So, both navies conducted joint naval exercise under strategic partnership. The bilateral exercise was conducted in the South China Sea and the Indian Navy harbored at Cam Ranh Bay in Vietnam. The Indian ships which participated in the naval exercise were destroyers INS Ranvijay and missile corvette INS Kora. So, location-based questions can be asked in your prelims, especially pertaining to Cam Ranh Bay, which is in Vietnam. And India and Vietnam have conducted joint naval exercise. Now, based on our discussion, this becomes your practice question for the day. It says, consider the following statements. First, National Mission on Edible Oils, Oil Palm, is a centrally sponsored scheme where financial assistance will be provided only by the center and not by states. The second statement says that the national mission has been introduced to increase area of production of oil palm in India, along with reducing import dependence of edible oils. So the question is, which of the statements given above are correct? Options are A, 1 only, B, 2 only, C, both 1 and 2, and D, neither 1 nor 2. Now, coming to the answer of yesterday, the question was, with reference to remission of duties or taxes on export product scheme, consider the following statements. First, this scheme provides refunds on the embedded taxes to the exporters in the form of duty scrips. Yes, this statement is correct. Second, the scheme has replaced the merchandise exports from India scheme. Yes, this statement is also correct. So here the question was, which of the statements given above are correct? So here the correct answer becomes C, that is both 1 and 2. So with this we come to an end to today's analysis. Thank you for watching DNS.